Chapter 1. "Come on, brother, wake the fuck up," Slade groaned as the annoying voice disturbed his peaceful rest. "Slade, come on, brother, you gotta get the fuck out of here." For some reason, the disturbance sounded a lot like dog. Why the fuck would the strip club manager be giving him an unwelcome wake-up call? Slade popped one eye open. Probably because he had passed out at Heaven's Angels Gentlemen's Club. Again. That wasn't a pillow under his head. Nope. It was a stripper's lap. He tipped his eyes upward. Not surprised at all, she was passed out too. Her head rested against the back of the red velour love seat, her neck bent cockeyed and her mouth wide open. She didn't look so hot right now. But then, he probably didn't look much better. With a groan, he lifted his head off her fishnet stocking thighs. Hopefully, she didn't mind the little bit of drool that had escaped his gaping mouth during his snooze fest. Fuck. He wiped the back of his hand over his mouth and groaned. "Seriously, brother, you gotta get the fuck out of here. Wanna lock up? Take her with you if you gotta. But just get gone." He blinked. His brain felt like a whole lot of cotton had been shoved between his ears. He sucked in a deep breath and grimaced. Fuck. He wouldn't be eating that snatch anytime soon. Fuck him, that was deadly. He pushed himself upright, faster than he should have, and his head wobbled. No, that wasn't his head. That was his pickled brain. "Want me to get one of the prospects to take you back to church?" He blinked again, hoping his vision would clear. He turned his head to find Dog standing about 5 feet away, hands planted on his hips, an unhappy expression on his bearded face. The 6'2" biker had dark smudges under his eyes. He was probably ready to get some shut-eye of his own after working all night. Slade tried to shake his head, but that made things so much worse. "No," he finally got out, his voice croaking like a sick frog. "Either that or Diamond. Take your fucking pick. If I were you, I'd take door number 1. Number 2 might just shriek your head right off, and then slam your dick over and over in that door, especially since you're using one of my girls as a fucking pillow." Door number 1 sounded like a good option. There was probably a prospect still in the club that could drag his ass home. Slade forced out. "Where's Moose?" "In the back, restocking. Gonna get him to haul this passed-out bitch home in a few, and can get him to drop you off, too." Slade started to nod, but thought better of it. His brain felt like soup. No point in sloshing it around more than necessary. "Don't get why you're getting fucking plastered here every night instead of the Iron Horse. Drink free there. Here you don't." He drank here because most of the club members didn't come out to the strip club. It wasn't a typical hangout for them. They preferred drinking in church or the public side of the bar, so they could just walk upstairs to their room to pass out. If he had any sense, he'd do the same. But after working a shift at the Iron Horse slinging drinks for Hawk, the club's VP and bar manager, and helping contain any out-of-control customers, he didn't feel like serving himself. He wanted to sit on the other side of the bar, enjoy himself, and not be bothered. It also didn't hurt that most of Dog's girls were easy on the eyes and came with big-ass tits. Not to mention soft laps to pass out on, and sometimes pussy that didn't smell like death warmed over. But that wasn't the main reason he'd been ending up here. Fuck no, it wasn't. The main reason was to lay low, get his drink on without that bitch harping at him. A bitch he hadn't even banged yet. A bitch who had tried to get her claws in him, take a permanent seat on the back of his sled. He wasn't ready to have an old lady for fuck's sake. And even if he was, it certainly wouldn't be Diamond. While they had a bit of fun last summer during some of the club runs, that was all it was. Fun. To an extent. At least until she wanted to become his regular piece. Worst part about her was the woman didn't listen. No fucking way was he putting up with backtalk and attitude. He didn't mind claws, as long as they only came out while fucking. Screw that everyday shit, though. That would give a brother a headache, worse than the hangover he would have tomorrow. Was the bitch hot? Fuck yeah, she was. Long, dark brown hair, that was typical for the Dirty Angels MC women, and great for digging his fingers into. Bright blue eyes that could pierce him to his soul. Plump red lips that would be perfect for wrapping around his cock and sucking him like a fucking Hoover vacuum. And the fucking tits on her. Damn, they'd been pressed to his back during the runs a couple times. He couldn't forget those curvy hips of hers either. Perfect to sink his fingers into, whether he was fucking her from behind or she was riding him like a bucking bronco. All stuff he had planned on doing with her, until he found out she was fucking crazy too. She could flip the bitch switch in an instant. Could have something to do with Di's father, Rocky, doing time in SCI Green for murder. She was the kind of woman who needed a firm hand, and apparently didn't get it growing up with her mother, Ruby, from what he heard. The only father figure she had was Ace, and that poor man already had his hands full with his own two sons, Diesel and Hawk, as well as his nieces and nephews, Dex, Ivy, and Bella. But it wasn't like he'd had a father figure in his life either. No matter what, Slade certainly wasn't going to be filling in for her daddy and giving her some life lessons, especially now that she was about to turn 30. No fucking way. Though, some of those so-called life lessons could be fun. Her sister, Jewel, got a lot of those from her old man, Diesel. It always seemed D, the club's sergeant-at-arms, was throwing his old lady over his shoulder and hauling her ass either home or upstairs to his room at church to teach her a lesson. His lips twitched. Those were the best kind. Slade wasn't sure if that's what Diamond needed, but if she did, he wasn't the one willing to give them to her. Though he normally didn't mind a challenge, right now he wanted easy. No lip, no attitude. Fuck, tuck, and go. Another reason he kept landing face down on Dog's girls. Couldn't get easier than that. For the most part, anyhow. They knew better than to cling afterward. "What's her name?" Slade asked Dog, who was coming from the back room with Moose on his heels. Slade had been so caught up in his thoughts, he hadn't even noticed he'd left. Damn. "Don't think it's gonna matter when you wake up tomorrow morning." "It is tomorrow morning already," the prospect told Dog. "Nah, once he lands in his rack, he ain't waking up till tomorrow morning." Moose laughed and nodded. Nope, that couldn't happen. Slade had to work the Iron Horse tomorrow night. Tonight. What fucking ever. What time is it? 3. Fuck, Slade groaned. "Yeah, and I want to hit my own rack, so get the fuck out of here." Slade tilted his head toward the still passed-out stripper. "Didn't fuck her, right?" "Nah. Didn't make it off that couch before you both passed out. Got a sloppy lap dance, and then you were both out fucking cold." "Fuck," Slade muttered again. "Yeah, owe me $100. Slade's eyebrows shot up his forehead. "For the lap dance?" "No, owe her for the lap dance. Owe me for the loss of tips since she missed her last dance on stage." "Shit." Dog nodded. "Yeah, shit. This shit's gotta stop, brother. Bad enough you're getting wasted, but getting my girls wasted ain't good. Got me?" Slade sucked in a breath. "Yeah, got you. Gotta carry her, Moose. Make sure she gets inside her place and it's locked up before you leave." "Got you, boss." "And don't be copping a feel either. Got me?" Dog said louder than what was necessary, which made Slade wince. The heavy-set prospect lifted his palms in front of him. "Ain't taking advantage of some unconscious lady?" Dog snorted at the prospect's use of lady. But no matter what Dog thought of his girls, he treated them well and made sure they stayed safe. That's why he never had a lack of talent on stage. "And that's why I pay you well, prospect. Now get them both out of here so I can go crash." Moose leaned over, picked the stripper up like she weighed nothing, even though she was dead weight, and Slade reluctantly climbed to his feet. His head spun for a second, but once he leveled out, he was good to follow Moose out of the club's back door to the employee parking lot. However, out in the parking lot on the way to the prospect's vehicle, he had to take a quick pit stop and rid his gut of its liquid contents. And that didn't make him feel one fucking bit better.
"The big 3-0!" Jewel practically screamed in her ear. Diamond winced at her sister's loud enthusiasm. Who the hell was excited when they turned 30? Not her. Di was not looking forward to her 30th birthday. No way, no how. 30 and still single? 30 and still not an old lady. 30 and still didn't have anyone in her bed on a regular basis. 30 and her steady boyfriend took batteries. And a lot of them. She frowned. Okay, so, what are we planning? Bella asked, leaning back into the counter at Sophie's Sweet Treats. They were having an impromptu meeting of the DAMC women. Somehow, whenever that happened, they always ended up at Sophie's bakery. Well, the reason why was simple. Fucking awesome, sweet, fattening cupcakes. The best in Western Pennsylvania, if you asked Diamond. But that was neither here nor there. The point was the women wanted to do something for her birthday. We could do a ladies' night out, Kelsey chirped. Where? Ivy asked. Kelsey shrugged. Find some hot club in the burg. I'm not going to some club, Bella muttered. Why not? It would be fun, Kelsey exclaimed. Well, that would leave me out, Sophie said, holding on to her huge belly. All I need is my water to break in the middle of the dance floor. Sophie looked like she was about to pop out Zach's kid at any second. Di wrinkled her nose. It actually looked painful with her body stretched enormously out of its natural shape. It looked like she shoved an overfilled beach ball under her maternity top. She couldn't imagine Sophie's former hot body would ever be the same again. The woman waddled over to the display case and groaned as she tried to lean over to pull out a tray of cupcakes for them to devour. Ugh, Sophie gasped. What? Kiki yelled, eyes wide. Sophie straightened, making a face. I think I just peed myself a little. Freaking kid is riding on my bladder like it's a Harley. Let me get that, Bella said, putting a hand on Sophie's back and gently moving her out of the way. She pulled out a tray of cupcakes that looked mouth-watering. What are those? Diamond whispered in awe, mesmerized by the hip-widening confections. Bella did an elaborate hand sweep over the tray. S'mores cupcakes. Chocolate cake filled with a swirl of fudge and marshmallow filling, topped with toasted marshmallow frosting and graham cracker crumbles on top. Ivy sighed as she stared at the baked goodies. Di felt the same way. Give me one of those right now. Bella laughed and handed them out. Everyone got very quiet as they shoved all the sugary goodness into their cupcake holes. Eyes rolled, passionate groans, and lip-smacking ensued. Then the bells over the door jingled, and they all turned their attention in that direction. How'd you know we were pigging out on the newest cupcake flavor? Bella called out. Axel pushed through the door, wearing his uniform and a heavy patrol jacket, since it was March and winter still hadn't completely vacated Shadow Valley. He smiled and shrugged. His gaze bounced from the tray of cupcakes to Bella. I've been thinking about them all morning, especially since you mumbled something about s'mores cupcakes in your sleep. I did not, Bella scoffed. I swear you did. Give me one of those. He approached the display case and Bella handed him a cupcake. All the women held their breath as Axel peeled the baby blue paper baking cup off the bottom of the cupcake and waited for him to tongue the icing in the sensual way he was known to do. But he didn't. He just took a big bite, and their breath rushed out at once. What the fuck, Bella? You ruined it now that he's in your bed every night. Ivy muttered under her breath to her sister. Bella smirked and shrugged. After swallowing his bite, he cocked an eyebrow toward the group of women behind the counter. Am I interrupting an important meeting? Yes, since your cousin's turning 30 in a couple weeks. We're making plans. Oh, fuck, Axel muttered. Like what? Going clubbing or male strippers or... Kelsey shrugged. Something fun. Axel frowned. Male strippers? Yeah, why not? Di didn't miss it when Axel's gaze hit Bella's. Something went unsaid between the two. We're not doing male strippers, Bella said softly, rolling her lips inward to contain her amusement. Says who? Kelsey asked, disappointed. Diamond was surprised she didn't stomp her foot for good measure. She was known to do that on occasion. I could tell you who would have something to say about it. Axel's gaze landed on Jewel. Diesel. It moved to Sophie. Z. It bounced to Ivy. Jag. Then finally landed on Kiki. And Hawk. Maybe that's who. But not you, right? Kiki asked, just as amused. You'd be fine with Bella going to see male strippers? Axel's inhale of breath and his chest puffing out was unmistakable. He yanked up his duty belt. I've no problem with it. Kelsey's laughter peeled through the shop as she slapped her palm on her thigh. Right. I wouldn't. Bella's free to do what she wants, he exclaimed. Right, Kelsey said again, still laughing. Bella moved around the counter and up to Axel, slipping a hand into his open patrol jacket and planting it on his belly. Maybe it's best if you leave us women to finish our little powwow. Go fight some crime or something. He planted a quick kiss on her lips before shoving the remainder of the cupcake into his mouth. He nodded, chewed, and swallowed before saying, Can I take one to go? Kiki grabbed another cupcake and held it out to him. He moved to snag it and then leaned into Bella, putting his mouth to her ear. Diamond wondered what he whispered to his woman and felt a pang of jealousy. It wasn't that she wanted Axel. Hell no, she didn't. He was her cousin, for fuck's sake. But she was envious of what those two had. Hell, she was envious of what all the women in the room who had hooked up recently had with their men. All but her. Well, and Kelsey too. Bella beamed up at him, and after another quick kiss to her forehead, Axel left. Bella turned to the group who was staring at her, and she clapped her hands together sharply. Now, let's get down to the business of planning Di's 30th birthday bash. The women hooted and held up their cupcakes, tapping them together like champagne glasses. I know part of my plan is that I'm getting laid for my 30th, Di declared with a nod. Easy enough, Ivy said, licking icing off her finger. No, seriously. We believe you, sis, Jewel assured her. All we have to do is plan a big pig roast and there'll be plenty of dick to choose from. Like who? Di asked, and before anyone could answer, she added, And don't say Slade. Okay, I won't, Jewel frowned. Like hangarounds, and we can invite the Dark Knights. I'm sure one of them would drag you by your hair upstairs and bang the shit out of you. Yeah, I'm sure our brother would love to watch me being dragged upstairs by a knight. Your old man might have something to say about it, too. Joel waved a dismissing hand in the air. Then don't do it at church. Take whoever it is back to your place. Di tilted her head as she considered her sister's suggestion. Okay, but we still need to plan what we're doing, Kelsey said. I think we need to do it somewhere other than church, Kiki said. We want it to be special. You only turned 30 once, and we don't want it to turn into a club party just like any other. True, Ivy said, tapping her bottom lip with her finger. So, we don't want to do it at the Iron Horse either, Kiki said, clearly giving it some thought. No. Plus, do we really want the men busting in and being all up in our business, making sure we're not doing something they don't approve of? Jewel said, reminding them all of how bossy and domineering the club members can be. Right. I thought you liked driving your man so crazy he gives you those lessons of his. Jewel smiled, her eyes sparkling. I do, but still, Right. They'll spoil it. It has to be elsewhere. So we go to a club and go dancing. Simple as that, Kelsey said. Somebody really wants to go out clubbing, Kiki murmured. What else is there to do? Kelsey, the youngest of all the club sisters, asked. Not going out dancing, came the deep grumble from the direction of the bakery kitchen. Ugh, fuck, Kelsey muttered next to Di as Zach came through the door. Ain't going out, running round, putting yourself in danger with the fucking warriors on the warpath, he continued. The warriors aren't going to be at a nightclub in Pittsburgh, Kelsey huffed. Z shook his head, making his dark shoulder-length hair swing, and stepped up to his wife, curving a hand along the bottom of her extended belly. How's he doing? She's doing fine, Sophie corrected him. Why didn't you guys find out the sex? Kiki asked, with more than a little exasperation in her voice. Sophie waved a hand around, then laid it over Z's. We want it to be a surprise, and I already know it's going to be a girl. Ain't gonna be a girl, Z grumbled. Bella snorted at the argument that kept being repeated for almost the last 9 months, and it was driving them all crazy. What are you going to do if it is? Kiki asked, her eyes crinkling with amusement at his stubbornness. Z opened his mouth and shut it. His eyes narrowed, and he frowned. Then he said, You women want a party, do it at church. Z, no, Kelsey yelled. No, we're not doing it at church, Jewel seconded Kelsey. No lip, ain't got a choice. The fuck we don't, Kelsey cried. Z raised his brows and swung his head toward her, laying down the law. Church or nothing. Got me. What the fuck? Kelsey muttered. We're not having our meetings here anymore. Di sort of agreed with Kelsey. It was difficult to have their meetings at the bakery now when it always seemed that Z was around. Instead of working in any of the other club businesses, he decided he'd help manage the bakery, which to him pretty much meant he got to boss his wife and Bella around and sometimes do paperwork. But really, Diamond thought the reason he wanted to work in the bakery was to keep an eye on and protect his pregnant wife. Sophie cupped her man's cheek and she grinned up at him. Then you men have to promise to stay out, and we can have male strippers come in. His blue eyes swung back down to his wife. What? You heard me, Sophie murmured, her grin widening to a smile. His eyebrows hit the top of his head. Strippers. Dee tried not to laugh at the way he spit that word out of his mouth. Yeah, you know. Like the ones that are always at the club parties, except they have dicks instead of tits, Kelsey said, crossing her arms over her chest. Shouldn't have a problem with that, right? With equality and all that. Z's eyebrows dropped low and his expression turned dark and stormy. Equality? Have you lost your fucking mind? Nope. Time for this club to come into the 21st century. We're demanding equality, Kelsey declared as she stomped her foot. Ah, there it was. Dee snorted, dropped his head to stare at his boots and shook it. Brain must have got scrambled, he muttered to the floor. He raised his gaze to his wife. You ain't going nowhere with my kid in your belly. Got me? Sophie pinned her lips together as she patted his chest reassuringly. First off, I'm not going out dancing in this condition. In any condition, he corrected her in a mutter. And your concern with our safety is duly noted. Reason for it. Right, I get it, baby, she whispered. She glanced toward the rest of the women. But it's Di's 30th birthday, and we are going to celebrate it, whether you like it or not.
That's so.
Yep, that's so, Sophie repeated with a nod. Di rolled her lips under in an attempt not to beam at Sophie's control over her husband. As club president and badass biker, he wasn't normally willing to bend for a woman, but Sophie had him wrapped around her little finger, and right now she was wiggling that powerful pinky. The rest of the women were pretending not to notice Sophie's control over her old man. Di eyeballed Kelsey, hoping the younger woman kept her trap shut and didn't blow it for them. Kelsey's eyes slid to hers, and she bugged them out in a silent message. Di gave her a silent nod. Zach finally sighed.
Gonna get Hawk to close down the Iron Horse and get Dog to book you some male strippers. Ain't gonna let any of the brothers go over there to bother you. Drink, dance, eyeball some strange dick, have fun. Still safe, got me?
Got you, Sophie whispered, her eyes sparkling.
Invite Dog's girls.
No, she said firmly with a shake of her head, his eyebrows furrowed.
The sweet butts.
No.
The Knight's old ladies.
He muttered finally. Fine.
Gonna set up the prospects out front to guard the door. Keep an eye out for trouble.
Fine, as long as they don't come in. His nostrils flared.
Whatever.
He muttered, pressed a kiss to her forehead, and moved back in the direction he had come from. No one said a word until the door to the back kitchen swung shut. Then they even waited a few more seconds until they knew he was out of hearing range. Then they all looked at each other and beamed. Di rushed up to Sophie and gave her a high five. Good job! Now I just hope I won't pop until after the party. I want to see the results of my negotiations. Strange dick? Ivy asked, quoting Z.
Hell yes!
Kelsey crowed. Ivy snorted. Dog should have the connections to find a hot traveling troupe of male strippers on short notice. Up to him, he may find the ugliest ones. I'll call him and make sure he doesn't, Jewel assured Kelsey. And I'll make sure there's a lot of them. One for each of us. Oh, brother. You know Z was only the first obstacle. Some of us will have one of our very own, Kiki said. Like Hawk? Jewel asked. And remember that big, serious, overprotective brother of his? Kiki asked her with an arched brow. How can I forget? Diesel's old lady answered with a frown. Right. Bah! Jewel answered, waving a dismissing hand. They'll all get over it. Di was suddenly glad she didn't have to worry about a possessive man like most of them did. She was free to enjoy her birthday and hot, naked men as much as she wanted. And she was going to make sure she took full advantage of her birthday celebration. Maybe she'd even be able to talk one of the strippers into a private dance at her place, with both of them totally naked and horizontal. No batteries required. Yeah, that sounded like a great idea. She couldn't wait.